So you're thinking about getting into motorcycles. That's awesome. But I got to admit, between us, it can feel a bit like stepping into a maze, right? Chrome everywhere and all these terms you might not know. But hey, that's what we're here for. We're diving into a blog post today, The Best Motorcycles for Beginners. It's by Stacy Pfeiffer, and she lays out a really clear roadmap. And that first big decision, choosing the right bike, of course.
It's easy to get caught up in the cool designs and all, but before you click buy now on that shiny new model, let's talk about what actually makes a bike good for a beginner. Trust me, this is going to save you headaches, maybe even a few spills down the road. Okay,
so lesson 1. What should we be looking for in a good first motorcycle?
First up, we got to talk about weight. Yeah, lighter is easier to handle, we get that. But picture this, right? You're in a packed parking lot, still figuring out this whole clutch thing, and you need to make a tight turn on a bike that feels like a small car. Not exactly building confidence, is it? A lighter bike lets you focus on those basics without feeling like you're going to drop it every time.
Totally. When you're just starting out, it's less about wrestling the bike and more about, becoming one with the machine.
Yeah.
You wouldn't learn to drive in a semi-truck, right? You got to start smaller.
Exactly. And speaking of smaller, that brings us to seat height. This is about being able to flat-foot it.
Flat-footing? Okay, now I'm picturing clowns on those tiny bikes.
No, not quite. It just means being able to put your feet flat on the ground when you're on the bike. You know that feeling when you stop at a light and you're kind of on your tippy toes, that, oh crap, I hope I don't drop this thing feeling? Being able to flat foot just takes that worry away, especially when you're starting and stopping a lot. Gives you a much more stable, confident start.
Oh yeah, I've totally felt that wobble before. Not a fan. Okay, what about engine size? We're not talking about, boring versus exciting here, right?
No, not at all. It's all about manageable power. So a smaller engine, say in that 300, 500 cc range, it's kind of like the Goldilocks thing. It gives you enough to keep things interesting, but not so much that you feel like you're going to rocket off when you twist the throttle. Don't forget, you're still learning how to work the clutch, how the throttle responds, how to brake smoothly. A smaller engine lets you master those skills bit by bit.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, right? You don't need a monster truck to learn how to drive. What else should we be thinking about?
Okay, so price, comfort, and forgiveness. These are pretty self-explanatory, but important. You don't want to empty your bank account for your first bike, right? And you want something that fits you well, that won't punish you for every little mistake while you're learning.
Yeah, comfort is key. No one wants to feel like they're riding a torture device. Okay, so we've got the basics down. I feel much more ready to actually look at some bikes now.
Me too. It's like you wouldn't jump in the deep end of a pool without knowing how to swim a little, right? Got to lay that groundwork.
Speaking of jumping in, let's move on to the fun part. Let's talk about some actual motorcycles.
Stassi put together a really nice variety of bikes here in this blog post. Covers a lot of different styles.
I like what she did. Yeah, it's like, what kind of motorcycle are you craving?
Exactly. Yeah. So, if you're thinking sporty, the Kawasaki Ninja 400 is a really solid place to start.
Okay.
It's sleek, it's got that kind of nimble feel, and it even comes with something called the slipper clutch.
Slipper clutch. Ooh, sounds fancy. What is that?
It's actually super helpful for new riders.
Right.
Basically, it stops the rear wheel from locking up if you downshift too fast.
So less chance of that jerky, kind of scary feeling when you're still getting the hang of things.
Exactly. One less thing to worry about for sure.
Love that. Okay, so what about if you're not going for sporty, what if you want something more classic looking?
Yeah, well, Stassi included the Honda Rebel 300, which nails that cruiser look, but without being a huge, heavy bike. And this is where that whole, knowing yourself part comes in, right? Maybe you're a shorter rider and you've always felt kind of intimidated by those big old cruisers.
Yeah.
Well, the Rebel 300 gives you that style, but it's actually approachable.
Totally. It's about finding the bike that, fits you,
Yeah.
Okay, now for those riders who want something with a bit more of a raw mechanical look, Stacy talks about the Yamaha MT So 3.
Right.
And she uses the term, I think it's naked bike.
Yeah. Naked bike.
So what makes a bike naked?
It basically means it doesn't have all that extra plastic bodywork, the fairings and stuff that cover up the engine.
So it's showing off a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole style. It tends to appeal to people who like that kind of stripped down, almost aggressive look, if that makes sense.
I can see it, yeah.
It's like the motorcycle version of a leather jacket or something.
Nice. I like that. Okay, up next, we've got the Suzuki SV650, which Stacy called the Goldilocks bike.
Yeah.
So not too big, not too small, What makes it so just right?
I think the SV650 is a really good example of a bike that can, like, grow with you as a rider, you know?
Okay.
So its engine is a bit bigger than some of the others we've talked about, but it's still very manageable for someone who's just starting out.
Right.
So you're less likely to feel like you need to upgrade right away, which makes it a smart choice, I think.
It's like that friend who's always down for whatever, no matter what phase of life you're in.
Exactly.
That's a good one. Okay, this next one. I gotta admit, I'm already picturing myself cruising around on this one.
Yeah.
The KTM 390 Duke.
Oh, yeah. Fun bike.
It's got that fun energy.
It really does.
What's the deal with the Duke?
It's light, it's nimble, it's got this peppy little engine. It's just a blast to ride, honestly. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that it is very responsive.
Oh, okay.
So compared to some other beginner bikes, it might take a bit more finesse, I guess.
Good to know. Always better to be prepared.
Right.
Now, this next one is for those who really, really love that classic motorcycle look, the Royal Enfield Meteor 350. It just screams like retro cool.
It's true. It's a beautiful bike.
What is it about the Meteor that makes it special?
I think it's all about embracing that timeless design and just enjoying the ride itself, you know? It's not about going super fast.
It's about the vibe.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about cruising at your own pace, feeling the wind, listening to that engine. It's a different experience.
That sounds amazing, actually, yeah. Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have the BMW G310 GS. So this one is for the adventurers out there, right? The people who want to go on and off-road.
Absolutely, yeah. If you've ever thought about like adventure riding, this is a really great entry point.
What makes it so good for that?
So the G310 GS is comfortable enough to commute on, for sure, but you can also easily take it off-road, you know, explore some dirt roads, some trails, without feeling like you're on a bike that's too much for you.
Oh, very cool. I'm realizing we've gone through this whole list, and it's really striking to me how each bike has its own personality.
They really do.
Like each one kind of evokes a different feeling, you know?
Yeah.
Different style of riding.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you even choose? I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know, a good problem to have, right? Like you walk into a garage full of awesome bikes and you just want to try them all.
Yeah, it's like, where do I even start?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you go from like, ooh, I like that one and that one, to actually choosing?
Stacy really hit the nail on the head in her post. You know, she said it's not about just picking from a list.
Right.
It's got to be about finding the bike that you really connect with, that just feels right.
So how do you find that? Is it all about like going to a dealership and just...
Test riding. That's the key. It's like, I always say it's kind of like dating, right? You wouldn't just look at a picture and be like, yep, marrying that one. Got to go on some dates first.
Go to see how it feels.
Exactly. You can read all the specs, all the reviews, but nothing compares to actually throwing a leg over the bike and feeling how it handles, how it responds to you.
So it's like that gut feeling, right?
Totally. It's about that connection, that synergy between rider and machine, you know. And hey, speaking of feeling good, part of that confidence comes from knowing you're protected, too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We got to talk about gear.
For sure. It doesn't matter how cool the bike is. Got to have the right gear, no compromises. Helmet, gloves, jacket, the whole 9 yards.
It's like they always say, dress for the slide, not for the ride. But you know, one thing I really liked about Sassy's advice was how she talked about community.
Yeah. It's about more than just the bike.
It's like, okay, so you get your bike, you're excited, you're ready to ride. How cool would it be to share that with other people?
It makes such a difference.
She mentioned looking into local riding groups or even taking a class.
Oh, the classes are great.
Yeah. It's like you're learning from people who've been there who can share their experience.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a built-in group of friends to ride with.
That shared passion is awesome.
So I guess as we're wrapping up here, the big takeaway is that getting into motorcycles doesn't have to be this big, scary thing.
Nope, not at all.
If you do a little research, find some people to connect with, and, you know, don't forget to have fun.
That's what it's all about.
Then it can be an amazing experience.
Absolutely. Choose a bike that excites you, gear up, stay safe, and enjoy the ride. That's what it's all about.
And hey, maybe we'll see you out there on the road sometime.
Ride safe, everyone.
Ride safe.